two key arguments for theism, for the traditional view of God. The first one in the Christian tradition comes from St. Thomas Aquinas, and it's the argument from necessity, also known as the cosmological argument. And this comes down to a set of propositions and a conclusion, like a good philosophical argument should. It argues everything we observe has a cause. So to explain the existence of things, we must avoid an infinite regress of causes. If we simply have an infinite chain of causes going back as far as the eye can see and beyond, then explanation is hopeless. But if there was a first cause, then it must be an uncaused cause. And only God could be that uncaused cause. That's a summary of the argument from necessity. There are some variations on it, and I've looked at them, and if we have time in discussion, I'd be glad to talk about them. But I think that's a fair summary of it. However, it fails. It fails for at least two reasons. First, when Thomas Aquinas was writing, and before him, many centuries before him, Aristotle, it's true, everything you could observe seemed to have a cause. But we now observe things in nature that do not have a cause, at least not a direct cause. And quantum mechanics is where this is principally found. We have a phenomenon called spontaneous emission. An electron will drop from one orbit down to another and emit a photon. Or an atom periodically will split and emit particles. These have been studied very, very carefully. And there are two things that we can say for sure. One is that certain kinds of reactions, like radioactive decay, can be predicted in quantity with exquisite precision. I mean, down to 5 decimal places, you can predict how many alpha particles are going to be ejected by this stuff. But the other important thing here is that it is impossible to predict when any one of those atoms will decay. They go off at random. These are truly random events. So it's not true to say that everything that happens for a cause. Now, science has abstracted from that certain laws of nature, and you could say the laws of nature are the reason why these things happen, and that's fine. But you cannot tie the law to any particular event. It will not predict one event. It can only predict the statistical aggregate of events. Then the other reason that that argument from necessity fails is that there's no necessity for an uncaused cause to be God. In fact, we now have from science a fairly elaborate alternative scenario, which is the multiverse, in which bubble universes, and we happen to occupy one, are popped out of quantum foam at random. And each one has a different set of parameters, a different set of laws. And it's sort of like laying out cards. If you lay out hands of cards an infinite number of times, you will get a royal flush. It'll take a long time, but you'll get it. In fact, you can lay out all 52 cards, and eventually you'll get them in perfect order, just at random. It'll take an incredibly long time to do that, but the multiverse theory suggests that there is an infinite amount of time and space in which to tinker around. So there is no necessity for the uncaused cause to be God.